and thank you for your patience as we've gotten everything organized. All right, well, I think people will still be kind of joining us from here, and so we'll just get started. Hi all, my name's Vanessa Cheng. I'm the Director of Programs at Leonardo. Today, I'm a pale white and Asian woman with shoulder-length dark hair. I'm wearing, well, you can't see them because of my virtual background. I'm wearing these dangly earrings, which are a gold snake against a moon with a virtual background. That's kind of a pale gray that says Leonardo CripTech Incubator. Today we're going to introduce the CripTech AI Lab and CripTech Incubator before passing it on to our lead artist to talk about how things are going to work today. So we're here today to kind of celebrate the works in progress for the CripTech AI Lab, which is a virtual creative incubator that utilizes community-driven digital and new media art projects to engage, critique, and reimagine the relationship between disability and AI. It's a virtual lab that spans a 4-month period. It has included creative, technical, and conceptual workshops, guest speakers, individual project development, project review and advising sessions with our lead artist, Ilo, and culminating in this virtual presentation panel review, as well as an upcoming virtual exhibition. The CripTech AI Lab is part of Leonardo CripTech Incubator, which is an art and technology fellowship centering disability innovation. It is a platform for disabled artists working in media art to innovate in creative access. CripTech Incubator reimagines enshrined notions of how body-mind can move, look, and communicate. And we are guided by this notion of cryptechnoscience, which calls for a non-compliant knowing-making, a practice by which disabled people and communities dismantle existing technologies, infrastructures, and materials. This is a charge that builds on the provocation of the term crip, which is a position that disability is a desirable part of the world. We also use crip as a verb, as in to hack, which is part of how you see some of the projects working today. This project is supported by Ability Central and the Ford Foundation. With that, I'm going to pass it on to the lead artist of the CripTech AI Lab, Ilo, who's going to talk a little bit about the event today.
Hi, y'all. I'm Em, and I am fair-skinned. I have like a little top knot thing. I got blue glasses, wearing a cute little onesie that I made in my very dark studio for my very light sensitive brain. So today all of our artists are going to give little presentations about the work that they've been doing during the incubator. And then all of our panelists will have a turn to speak afterward. Some of the artists will ask for specific kinds of feedback and some won't. So panelists are welcome to respond in whatever way feels suited to either the question or the open question about the work. And panelists will each have 90 seconds to talk after the presentations. And there will be sort of a chance for like dialogue between the presenter and the panelists. But while the panelists are first giving feedback, we'll just like let the panelists talk. And for people who are not artists or panelists or anyone who has questions for the artists, please put those in the chat. And artists, after you have presented, feel free to like look through the chat and respond to questions. If you have a question for a specific artist, just use their @ and then their name so that they can make sure to like see you talking to them in the chat. And the only other thing I wanted to add is if the chat is not accessible to you, raise your hand or DM me if you can't read the chat anything. I can read things out loud to make chat more accessible to you. So yeah, if chat's not accessible to you, please let me know and I will help facilitate the chat to you. Claudia, your turn.
Thank you. On that note of accessibility, my name's Claudia, pronouns they, them. I'm a Black person sitting in front of a green screen background of my art studio, but I'm actually inside a gigantic computer studio right now, surrounded by computers, giving me a lot of cognitive support for this presentation. My access needs are met. As part of the access groundings for this event, CripTech Incubator understands access as design justice. Anchored in this idea is the restorative work and empowered identification of CRIP, functioning as both a noun and a verb. The term CRIP reclaims disability as an identity and challenges prevailing ableist narratives that technology serves to normalize or rehabilitate disability. Access is a creative practice that goes beyond mere compliance for us. Our disabled community is not homogenous, and our needs are not identical or static. So access requires communication and collaboration from all parties. And while we're thoughtfully planning access interventions, we also know there will be unexpected barriers. Access is a process and a progress, not perfection. Perfection is a confining concept of supremacy culture, and we recognize access frictions will be inevitable, and we embrace them as learning opportunities. CripTech Incubator is for disabled artists. We are committed to broadly representing CRIP and disability culture, and thereby we adopt an expansive view of disability as a cultural identity and as a way of being. We're employing identity first language alongside person first language to reflect our view. Linguistic preferences in these presentations will also reflect deeply personal choices about how we present ourselves to the world. Our access design for today's session was informed by all of our participants. So participants will introduce themselves with their access needs if necessary. If you need support, you can DM myself or Jason. If we can meet needs now, we will adjust or we'll take those needs into account for future design. For today's session, we are providing captions. We are providing connection from a distance. We will call an access hold if there is an interruption in the digital signal or in a participant's body and ability to participate. During an access hold, we request silence while the parties deal with whatever technical difficulties there are, and then we will continue. We also have pinned Maya Mama's broadcast window to view a more accessible version of today's presentation. This version will be available after today's presentation asynchronously. Thank you all for helping us lean into and embody all of our access aesthetics. I will pass the microphone to Vanessa to begin.
Thank you, Claudia. All right, with that, let's begin. It is my great pleasure to introduce our three panelists for today who will be offering feedback to our cohort on their projects. Three really dream team here, and I'll just go briefly. I won't share everything that they've done because it's too awesome. It's too much to cover, but I'll describe kind of what they're up to. So. First, I'd like to introduce Lindsay D. Felt, a scholar, writer, curator, and educator. Lindsay D. Felt curates and builds frameworks for access and accessibility across digital arts and educational platforms. She is the Disability and Access Impact Lead at Leonardo, where she serves as an advisor for the CripTech Incubator, and is also an advanced lecturer at Stanford University in the program in Writing and Rhetoric, where she teaches courses on disability, technology, and critical creative access. She holds a PhD in English from Stanford, and her curatorial work includes experiments in art access and technology at the Beale Center for Art and Technology and Recoding CripTech at Soma Arts. Our next presenter, Katie Kwan, is an entrepreneur, engineer, and artist. Katie Kwan is a pioneer in the nascent field of choreobotics and works at the intersection of artificial intelligence, human-robot interaction, and art. She's currently building a new company in the robotics space. Dr. Kwan is the founder and CEO of Zini, a journal that writes back to you. She holds a PhD and a Master's of Science in Robotics and AI from Stanford, where she's also a postdoc leading the art and robotics efforts at the new Stanford Robotics Center. And our last finalist, Lauren Lee McCarthy, is an artist examining social relationships in the midst of automation, surveillance, and algorithmic living. She's a 2024 to 26 Just Tech Fellow and was the 2022-23 Stanford Human-Centered AI Artist in Residence. She has received grants and residencies from Creative Capital, United States Artists, LACMA Art and Tech Lab, Sundance, iBeam, Pioneer Works, Autodesk, and Ars Electronica, and her work is in the collection of the Whitney Museum of American Art. Her work, Someone, was awarded the Ars Electronica Golden Nika and the Japan Media Arts Social Impact Award, and her work, Lauren, was awarded the IDFA Doc Lab Award for Immersive Nonfiction. Those are our panelists. So as Em described, we'll be going through each presentation. Each presenter will have 5 minutes to show their work, after which we'll invite the panelists to respond and offer feedback on the work. With that, I'd like to introduce our first set of presenters. Okay, so first, I'd like to introduce the Artist Collective and the lab cohort. The Interabled Collective of Christian Bayerlein, Puneet Jain, and Jessica Duarte has a shared practice that weaves together art, engineering, technology, research, and activism. It is grounded in co-creation throughout the entire process of developing technologies, most of which they hack and modify according to their needs. They have come together to tackle interlinked challenges, reimagining power dynamics, confronting technological ableism, and cultivating a more inclusive technological landscape, all through the lenses of disability justice, critical design, and creative hacking. With that, I'd like to pass it on to Christian, Jessica, and Puneet.
Hi.
Hello, everyone.
Hi.
I will share my presentation and I will talk on behalf of my two colleagues. Share. Yes. And then... So yes. Yeah. So I assume everything are seeing our photo. Yes,
Yeah.
it can be.
Yeah.
And let me just doing this like that. Okay. Well, as Vanessa said, we are an interable collective and we are each other allies. Our practice with engineering, research, and activism, and we have had to modify and co-create technologies to meet our own needs. We have been mostly working with VR artifacts that expose misconception around disabilities. So from our very first meeting in the incubator, the idea that resonated with us was access needs. So how our access needs meet or missed in encounters between able-bodied minds and disabled-bodied minds? We are thinking in Mia Menge's conception of access intimacy, recognizing and understanding the relational and human quality of access. It moves the work of access out of the realm of only logistic and into the realm of relationships. So during the incubator, we have been thinking about how all these relationships change when AI become a part of it. We already know the asymmetries, right? So how AI systems often are extract, erase, and misrepresent marginalized communities. So LLMs, or large language models in particular, remind us that language itself carry ableism. So we believe that dismantling ableism is a collective responsibility, not as an act of charity, but as an act of mutual survival, because techno-ableism affects us all. So we wanted to know if it is possible to create an LLM capable to make us aware of our own ableism. How might we use LLM to spark conversation around access needs? So we say LLMs talks a lot, so we made one that talk Crip. So we create a Cripping LLM, we built this chatbot that carries principles of disability justice. Rather than offering easy conversation, this chatbot talks a lot, asks provocative questions, reveals assumptions, makes you laugh, but also produce uncomfortability while repairing misunderstanding with poetry. So I will share a little demo about how this looks like. So we build a prototype, the experience which begins with a video as an introduction to access needs, and later we can chat with our LLM.
This is like how the interface looks like. People chat. You see on the right side, it's people writing. And on the left side, the chatbot tries to bring the conversation back to access needs, irrespective of what the other person is saying.
And we also get some screenshot about how it's a kind of example of provocation with humor. And I would read the chat along with you. So for example, the chat says, what would you need to feel that your need for access is guaranteed? The chat said. The person said that the channel for dialogue remains open. The chatbot said, access is not a cold room. Are you really catching a wheelchair user standing? The person says, ha ha ha, love that. No, I'm doing that. Wheelchair users have different levels of uses. The chat said, great for stare, but what about pain, pace, caption, and cost? And it's another example of poetry in which, for example, the chat says, waiting is not a failure. It is designed to. Whose time counts? The participant says, human time, you're just a machine. The machine says, maybe I'm not broken. I'm just not optimized for your expectation. The person says, yes, maybe it's better to don't have expectation. The chat says, what space will you help them next? Remember, nothing about us that start without, nothing about us that start with you, even in small ways. And this our last example that really likes us, because last month we put this chatbot to test in the street of Linz with our friend. And so we want to share these little examples because we love how the chat behave. So the chatbot has the ability to access to the camera in the street. And for example, the chat says, access is a mirror. Sometimes access needs is some just sitting and holding your hands while you both stare back in the inaccessible world. So this is our last slide. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Mhm.
Thank you, Jessica, Puneet, and Christian. All right, with that, I'd like to invite our panelists to offer feedback. So each of our panelists are asked to speak for about 1.5 minutes, totaling about 5 minutes, and then the panelists will not the participants will not have a chance to respond because we're low on time, but we can have time to discourse later in the Q&A if we need to. All right, Lindsay, would you like
Okay.
to kick us off?
Sure. Hi, everybody. Just really quickly, I'm a light-skinned woman. I wear cochlear implants behind my blonde hair, and I've got a cat sitting behind me who may make an appearance. Really awesome project. I was really loving how this concept of clipping LLMs, I think this is so timely and exigent at this moment. And I thought this notion of integrating poetry into it was really clever and moving, and certainly kind of supported your intention to like move towards repair and like care relationships. I was curious, just a couple questions for the group, but I was curious what the goal of producing discomfort was here and what kinds of discomfort you were hoping to elicit from your audience. And I was also curious, like, who is your intended audience here? Is it, whoop, there goes the cat. Is it your Crip community? Is it designed for a non-disabled audience to kind of expand their conceptions of what access is? Is it some combination thereof? So I was just curious to hear a little bit more about your intended audience. That might be the end of my time, but there's so much more to say. I'm really intrigued by this project.
Thank you, Lindsay. Lauren, would you like to offer your feedback now?
Sure, yeah, really great work. I had a similar question around audience, so I think we can talk more about that in the dialogue part of this. I loved seeing it in public. I was curious what the prompt was that people that were encountering it in public were given. Like, was it just to type into the message line, or was there a specific question or seed that got people talking? Because I think that design there could really frame how people are interacting or encountering the piece. I really appreciated how kind of layered and provocative the text and the feedback from the chatbot was, and I was thinking kind of extensions of this project. I wonder if there's ways to present those things that go even beyond screenshots. Like I could imagine some of those phrases becoming pieces or things that you present in itself. Similarly with like the training set or the design or the prompting that's going into the LLM that you built. I'd be really curious to kind of see that broken down a little bit more in the future too, as like another output of the project potentially. And then lastly, I was thinking about like how we interact with humans around disability and access needs versus an AI, and whether this project is suggesting like some of the things it said were so humorous or seem to have this like level of nuance and understanding. Is the suggestion that like this is almost better than a human, or is there something that's fundamentally missed when talking with an AI? So I loved the complication of that in there, and it's something I think could be interesting to explore further.
Thank you, Lauren. Katie?
Thank you all so much for sharing your work with us. And I agree, very timely and certainly I was smiling because I noticed a couple of different phrases. I was like, oh, what a clever tickling for my brain. Couple of questions for me was the sort of point of encountering. How will it introduce itself to you? How will you introduce itself to it? So kind of this first moment, kind of how you're architecting and shaping that. Similarly, how someone will engage with this. How much do you want to share about your process of your own prompting and how this LLM is different than a different experience you would have with a different LLM? How it would describe potentially even its own prompt. It's almost like a meta comment on what the LLM tells me versus kind of what I tell it. It's like moment of mutual revealing was the thing that I wrote down. I'm also curious about the aesthetics of the experience. So whether this is a thing that people could talk with back and forth out loud. You have this camera feed, which is another sensor modality, which to me immediately started to unlock things like gesture. So I wondered if you're looking into some of these other multimodal opportunities aside from the typing with the LLM. And then my final provocation, it's not only the aesthetics of the experience, but like if it is going to be on a screen-based medium, how you've taken that kind of sampling from the dialogue box that we've seen in a lot of other spaces. Do you want to continue to enforce that, or have the dialogue live in different sections with new colors, new aesthetics, new dimensions? And so I thought that was an opportunity of further exploration.
Thank you, Katie. And thank you all of you for, I think it's really generative feedback. Jessica, Puni, and Christian, maybe you can think about that a bit. And if we have time in the Q&A section, we can talk about it further. Great. All right, with that, I'd like to move on to our next presenter. Dr. Matt Dalglish is a researcher, educator, and artist designer working at the intersection of people, audiovisual technology, and accessibility. He is also a congenitally one-handed musician, playing trumpet, guitar, and modular synthesizer. Matt is currently Senior Lecturer in Game Audio and Technical Design at the University of Staffordshire, an Accessibility Chair of NEAM 2026, and a Trustee of the OMI Trust. With that, I'll pass it to Matt.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. I'm a pale-skinned male, slightly wet from the British weather, and in a very uncomfortable cupboard for the moment. And I'm just going to share my screen with you. Just to say, I'm in the cupboard of my own accord. I haven't been taken in there or anything. Okay. Day to day, there's usually quite a lot of focus on my one-handedness, socially, musically. But what actually affects me far more is my lower limb difference. And it's not that it goes unnoticed. At the kind of intimate level of the gait, it's quite noticeable and it's quite readily noticed and surveyed increasingly. It's more that the larger scale spatial effects and implications are rarely anticipated or understood. And my project, Limp Freak, really starts from that point. And in essence, it takes populations of early 1950s cybernetics inspired self-navigating bots and uses them to explore and play out how localized locomotion differences, such as my own leg length discrepancy, cascade and ripple outwards to have this kind of greater effect on how asymmetric bodies navigate, use, and inhabit spaces, and spaces that are typically still either designed for idealized humans, that kind of Le Corbusier hangover, or for any narrow accessibility cases. And the idea that perhaps my own accessibility, my own physical accessibility falls kind of into the cracks, falls in between. I'm particularly interested in what happens when we stop thinking of imperfection as a flaw and start seeing it as the basis for rich generation, as a source of new patterns, new logics, new possibilities. The bots within the project don't move correctly, but they move interestingly, move in interesting ways. They not only open up and suggest more pluralistic senses of space, more pluralistic spatial logics, rooted in modifications and hacking of early 1950s cybernetic / AI designs. Their forms kind of hint at an alternative history of AI, a history of AI grounded in the potential of difference instead of being so focused on optimization and perfection through abstraction. So the development of the project has really been through a number of prototypes, and I really wanted to create something that was web-based and you could play with and explore rather than me trying to depict something. So after a kind of iterative development process, the elements of the project are a series of simulations with populations of bots with customizable rules in a variety of different spaces, initially 2D, growing into three-dimensional spaces, and these spaces and the rules within them becoming increasingly customizable. So I think in total there are 5 kind of simulations that can be played with that will form part of the exhibition, as well as a series of high-resolution images that have been output from simulations tracking the movements of the bots through different spaces, from the macro scale, the very large scale, down to the very small scale. And again, both 2-dimensional and 3-dimensional. Supporting that, there are some tutorials to kind of lead the user in and introduce the system to them. As well as Everything presented is capable of being reprogrammed, hacked, so the user can take it in new directions. Pretty much everything you see is completely customizable to breaking point. There's no kind of safeguards there on what can be done. Basic changes would be things like tweaking the camera, tweaking the colors, tweaking the movement rules, but you can actually take it much further than that, and everything is kind of open source and documented. And in terms of the direction it's moving in, it's really moving from documenting movement to taking those records of movement through space and kind of using them to start to generate new speculative spaces, kind of speculating on what might be spatially. And that's where I'm at now. Okay, one last thing. You can try out all of these things through my website if you want to. And it's very much intended for playing with rather than kind of looking at. So if you're interested, you can try it out at mattd.space. Follow the link for Limp-Freak. And with that being time, I'll wrap up there.
Thank you, Matt. Yes, fascinating project. All right, let's mix things up a little bit. Lauren, would you like to kick us off, responding to Matt?
Sure. Yeah, thank you so much. I just found first of all, I found the approach of this project, the way that you're bringing together your experience and the context that you're thinking about, and then this 3D space that you're working in into this speculative approach, really, really interesting. And then the fact that you're kind of creating your own visualizations and tools, but also opening those to other people is really exciting. I was really thrilled to hear about the fact that it's open source and also that you've been documenting it and not just documenting, but thinking about tutorials. Speaking of access, I think documentation around tools like this is another like really exciting and important vector for access for people to approach technology or approach something new. And then finally, I really appreciate that phrase you said where like everything is customizable even to a breaking point. So thinking about the design of the system, the fact that you haven't put limitations in here in terms of like what is allowable or normal or supported behavior of these systems, but instead leave that open, I think conceptually is really rich, to suggest that you haven't already applied a set of norms or constraints to it. And I think that really represents the embrace of the openness of the movement here.
Thank you, Lauren. Katie, would you like to pick up?
Thank you, Matt. Also, I neglected to describe myself. I'm a fair-skinned woman with curly, dark black hair wearing various kinds of fuzzy things. Okay, Matt, I mean, obviously, I think we share a number of shared interests, kind of curious about movement and how it's recorded and transcribed through space and also translated onto other forms of body. So I thought this project was very intriguing. A couple of questions. You had a phrase around alternative history of AI, and I think what you're also sharing with us is an alternative future of AI. It's kind of like a multi-body system where optimization is not the exclusive goal, but it's about having a design palette or a design space that's broader than optimizing for a specific set of outcomes. Couple of questions or invitations. I found myself, with these 2D images, wondering how someone might directly, viscerally might experience the idea of movement. Maybe, a part of their body that gets to travel through the image, or the image travels for them in an unusual way, because you are capturing time series data. So thinking about how can you add that third dimension, not only of the XYZ, but the fourth dimension of time as well. And maybe that could be a part of the piece in some universe. I think also the idea of, many different rules for describing the motion. Obviously, these are velocities and forward velocities versus angular ones. I wondered if there was even some opportunities to kind of describe motion in ways that are non-numeric or non-scientific, or could even include your own rules for what you think motion can and should capture. And then I also noticed, there's this sort of single point moving through the space, and was curious to know maybe why you chose a single point as opposed to if there was like a multi-limbed body or something, you would have many points that were moving through space simultaneously. And I might have missed that, but overall, I love that also people can experience it viscerally by playing with this themselves. And so curious to learn how you'll situate that in a presentational context, and yeah, what people might encounter as a result of being the own architects of their experience.
Thank you, Katie. Lindsay?
Okay, I just kind of want to echo some of the observations from both panelists so far. I think those are similar thoughts that I had. I think this is such an interesting project, how you've kind of worked to kind of gamify motion in this sort of virtual digital setting. And I thought that was really intriguing, moving away from sort of optimization and instead looking into sort of imperfection, emphasizing difference. So just a couple kind of thoughts that sparked in my mind when you mentioned the sort of callback to cybernetics. I found that really interesting, and I was actually curious, Matt, if you were aware that Norbert Wiener, who was known as the father of cybernetics, was also really interested in kind of neurological and motor differences in folks, and like that was actually kind of in some ways the origin of some of his cybernetic thinking. So there's like this kind of amazing through line that I'm seeing here between your project and kind of early cybernetics. My question really is more, again, an invitation. I'm kind of curious in terms of the access aesthetics of this piece. How would this translate for someone who's encountering it from like a non-visual perspective? What kind of sort of descriptive language would you use? How would you create kind of a non-visual sort of layer to this experience? Is there some sort of tactile feedback? Do you have like sonic integration in some way that kind of helps sort of expand our notion of what movement is? Because movement is so multimodal and multisensory. So it seems like there's a really amazing capacity for building on that if there's interest in that. Okay, so it looks like my time's up, sadly. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Lindsay. I know so much to say and so much to build on. Tough to keep things to the time that we have. All right. With that, I'd like to introduce our next artist, after which we'll take a brief break. So Guoying Li is a hyperacusis disorder pianist who obtained her doctoral and master's degrees in music from the University of North Texas and the New England Conservatory. Previously, she served as a faculty member at Zhaoqing University, National Tsinghua University, and National Yangming Qiaotong University. Currently, she is an independent researcher and freelance artist. Guoying, I have your slides and your video on my computer. Would you like me to run them?
Thank you, please.
Yeah, okay, 1 second. Let me just haven't used PowerPoint in a second.
No
Okay,
problem.
so wait.
No problem.
Okay, all right, and I'll just share it here. Oh, wait. I might have to share it like this. Okay, so desktop 1. Here we go. Is that okay?
Yes. Hi, everyone. My name is Guoying. I am Asian, yellow skin, with black hair, middle-aged woman. And before this project, I have never done or contributed to any work to disability. I'm doing this project mainly for myself, my own body, to study my own body. As I encounter hyperacusis, I was diagnosed as hyperacusis 19 years ago. It was a long while. At the time, I couldn't get much references to study my own body. And this whole entire project is not not for a systematic project or product for anyone else, but it's just for myself because I really need to know myself better. So I use TD. TD is a Touch Designer Pro version to do the real-time auditory and visual interaction in this project. And next slide, please. The reason why I have to visualize it is because it's so rare, and I encounter many challenges where I try to explain what it is, and people could easily fix the problem. I mean, irregular auditory perception mixed together with the mental illness. Although I have to face the reality that this I would say depression, psychological depression caused by hyperacusis is possible, but I would say I still want to find the real cause because neurological condition is very sophisticated, and I would love to explore further. Although it might be only meaningful for myself, but I love to do that. Next, please. Firstly, I just talk with ChatGPT. I put the access state just because the language model has been updated so fast that each time when I access in, different result might pump up. So this just for the day when I access in, but this description doesn't completely display my entire symptom, particularly for the high frequency sound or specific timbre of loudness, which may make me so challenging to explain to people what it is. Next page, please. Thank you. During my experimentations, I try many different templates produced by TD, and mostly I just try to display how my auditory experience through the visualization of sound. And this page pretty much just show you the vibration and less vibration through different timbre of sound. Next page, please. Thank you. I would just talk a little bit about the aesthetics. Actually, I don't have much aesthetics because, as you can see, it's all built-in system. I know nothing about algorithm. I just try because I'm a piano player. Most of my training in my life is about deliberate practice. That's fixing problem in the repetition. So I just do this repetitive input, output, drag and drop and connect, disconnect to put my input, my auditory perception into the system. And later, please next page. Thank you. The previous page I didn't indicate that you can adjust the parameter, the saturation, hue, and alpha. When you put the signal, I mean audio signal into, like as you can see on this page, the image in front of you, you can adjust according to how you, because the hyperacusis is a real-time, in-time reaction just from one ear that you heard the additional acoustic and the resonance only one ear, the other side is normal. So you can adjust according to your feedback, biological feedback. And as you can see, maybe it's very little. There is like a peak threshold and the trigger threshold. You can adjust according to how you feedback to the sound, all different timbres. Next page, please. Thank you. These tools are used only for very final musical product presentation. I don't even know if it's necessary because I have done one experiment in Taiwan in Taichung's theater. I actually did synesthesia because in my living area I can't easily share my disorder with people. That's just a cultural thing. I saw tickets. Okay, that's it. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Do you want to show a little bit of the video? I know we're low on time, but you do have a video to share. Would you like to
Maybe just
share that?
maybe
Okay.
less than 1 minute would be enough.
Okay,
Just
I'll
ambient
show.
sound. Thank you.
All
Ambient
right.
sound.
Let's see. All right. Just make sure I share the sound too.
Oh, this is a musical thing. Do we have the environmental? Oh, we don't.
I have.
Oh, it's okay. It's okay. Doesn't matter. This one is pretty, but it doesn't show my pen.
Oh, it's not
Oh,
the
yeah,
same?
we do.
Yeah.
Okay. We do have inverter, but we don't have sound. Oh. The regular cycle is pre-designed, but the vibration and the coloration is according to.
To 48 number 5 for PP number 40. Please present your body task and start order number 40. After I get quick winning season and hear your tour order. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, please.
Maybe we don't have to hear the whole thing.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, we time is up.
Alright.
Thank you. Thank you very
Alright.
much. Thank you.
Thank you, Guoying.
Thank you.
All right, Katie, would you like to start us off?
Thank you so much for sharing your work. I especially commend, your preamble at the beginning about the kind of transparency and vulnerability that you're bringing to the project about understanding your own experience. That was very beautiful and resonant, and leads to my question, which is if there's an opportunity for testimonials for you having gone through this experience of interrogating your own, hyperacoustic experience of the world, and just like how we can also continue to potentially you can weave yourself into the project, and so I can learn more about what are the revelations that you had over the course of building this. For the aspect of the project where users will be able to work with this experience and their own tools themselves, I'm so curious how you'll train them or even like provide an introduction or no. No
I
training.
never been trained. I learned by
Yeah.
tutorial links, but I almost practice every day, just like piano practicing, because
Right.
there's no algorithm. But you have to connect, disconnect, and there's a very important
Okay.
tool called fluid simulation. That's from the TD official website, and the voice tracker, pitch tracker from the TD's official website. These two tools I think are quite influential because they really detect and they really can. It's sort of, for me, I don't know if I'm correct. It's a little bit like machine learning because the training.
Guoying, sorry
Yeah.
to interrupt. We're gonna let the panelists just speak all the
Thank
way
you.
through
Okay.
and save responses for the end. Thanks.
Yes, awesome. And then another aspect I thought of is just, you're moving very much between the mechanical and the digital, or you could argue in many cases that that is the same. And so I'm thinking like the literal mechanics of an ear and how there's an aspect of what you're building that's very physical, or you're trying to decompose a physical experience into something that can be captured digitally, and thinking about mechanics and potentially how to demonstrate mechanics in a part of the project. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Lauren, would you like to respond?
Sure. Thank you. So I was really excited about your development process and this tool that you're building as a means of reflection and self-understanding of your own processing. I think that's a really powerful point. And it kind of connects to some of the other works we've seen today. So I think that's a thread to keep following. I was thinking, I think kind of like Katie about the framing of the piece and how you present it. I'm so glad we got to see the clip at the end. That was really helpful for my understanding. And I wonder if, in future presentations, if you might want to even show that sooner. So I kind of, the viewer has a grounding of what it is you're building before getting into all the kind of development and context behind it. But these are questions of like how you present the tool in the end. I also found it really interesting watching the clip. It really raised my own sonic awareness. I suddenly became aware of all these noises. There was like a beeping, and I thought like, oh, is that in the video? And I realized it was outside my window. So I thought that was a really powerful aspect of your project, that you are communicating something about your own experience, but at the same time, I think at least for me, I experience like this raising of reflection of my own auditory experience that I think maybe, at least in my mind, symbolically kind of mirrored the way that you're interrogating your own experience. Thank you.
Lauren, Lindsay?
Thank you so much for sharing this project. Building on what both Katie and Lauren said, I think the personal strain of this sort of storytelling and meaning making and sense making that you're trying to do in this project is really beautiful and profound. And I think even though you mentioned it feels like a personal individual project, I do see this having great potential to move even beyond that into like a community-based project perhaps one day, like really long term, if that's something you're interested in, because there are so many different hearing differences, right? And so what you said, the kind of core of this project's motivation was trying to make sense of your own body, your own sensory experience. Like that's so deeply resonant with the disability community not feeling validated by medical diagnosis, right? Or that doesn't match your experience, your lived experience. So I think there's great potential for this to become even bigger if that's something you're interested in. Like other folks could also join in and build out this project so that it becomes like a vocabulary, a larger visual vocabulary of hearing differences and sensory embodiments. So yeah, I congratulate you on what you've accomplished so far.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thanks, Lindsay, and thank you, Hui and the other panelists. All right, so we've been in this room about an hour. We're going to take a very short break so everybody has a chance to recollect. We'll return in 5 minutes. So feel free to take a bio break, step away from your screen, and we'll see you shortly. Welcome back, all. As we return. All right. Let's see. We're gonna come back with Lucia. Lucia, are you? Sorry, so many people on these screens. I can't. Oh, there you are, Lucia. Okay, looks like folks are coming back in. So we've got a few more presenters coming up, 4 more presenters. So let's get started. So we might have some time at the end for a Q&A. So I'm really excited to introduce our next artist, Lucia Grossberger Morales. Began her computer art career on the Apple II computer in 1979. Since then, she's collaborated with computers to explore AI, create CD-ROMs, videos, AR, web worlds, and installations. She has maintained a painting practice since she was 4 years old. Lucia, take it away.
I'm going to share my screen. Okay. Oh, okay. Somehow I got this stuff on there, but Movement in Squares is a collaboration between my paintings and AI. I was trying to find a personal definition for my process of creating with AI. In this project, by comparing painting with AI, I found a personal definition of AI. Movement of Squares is an iterative process. First, I begin with the abstract painting. I input that into an LLM that generates the prompt. And then from the prompt, I go to an image, prompt to image AI. And then surprisingly, after that whole process, I got inspired to do new paintings. So this is an example. The first 4 paintings are from 2011 to 2024. And the 5 rows below are the images that were generated from the prompts generated from the original paintings. Then I go to a second generation of paintings. These are the new ones that I just did last month. And again, the 5 rows below show what was generated from those prompts. I'm on generation number 3 at this point. Now where am I? Sorry. I have a compromised immune system and bipolar illness. My moods can be extreme and fuel my creativity. Creating art is the best medicine I know how to stabilize my moods. Painting is a meditative, emotional, embodied practice. The canvas and I are engaged in a conversation of language and color and form. Squares represent stability and containment. I paint squares when life feels chaotic. Not surprisingly so, I've been painting squares since January. I was born in Bolivia, and during the time of the Incas, they used squares as a visual language. They continue to. So for me, the meaning of squares is cultural as well as psychological. Squares can also be confining, rigid, boxed in. I wrestle to find a balance between stability and creativity when painting squares. AI is the most amazing technology I've ever used, but I do not feel embodied in AI. It's like looking at a magazine. AI's pace can be exhilarating with the fury of images staying with me for hours. AI inspires me and is a part of most of my projects. Prompting is a creative collaboration with the LLM, and I'm just going to read a couple of prompts. They were just beautiful. Grid of gentle hues, safe squares in quiet order, peaceful, warm embrace. A patchwork of golden squares, each alive with ancient marks and woven rhythms, like fragments of memory stitched into a quilt of time. Every square is its own language, dots, zigzags, stitches, grids, woven together in a luminous tapestry. A meditation on repetition, patience, and the beauty of handmade pattern. In Midjourney, I can create a video out of any image with, and so these 4 images are 4 different pieces, and they were created using prompts from Gemma, which is a local AI. And here are some of the other images that I animated. I wanted to take it to another dimension, and so this is WebVR, and it's a work in progress. There's 2 pieces that I'm working on: permeable boundaries and text sparks pixels dance. Permeable boundaries is let's see, you walk through translucent squares in a VR space. As you move, colors shift and overlap. The next one is text sparks pixels dance, and a luminous VR gallery where translucent panels display abstract squares and text covers walls envelop you. And currently I'm going to continue exploring my paintings, hoping that soon they won't all be squares. And my goal in the future is to train my own AI on my over 200 paintings. Perfect. Timing, sorry.
Thank you, Lucia. That was perfect timing. Great. All right. Thanks, Lucia.
Stop
All
sharing
right.
a second to sign.
All
Oh,
right.
there we go.
All right. Thank you. Katie, would you like to start us off on the feedback?
Did I stop sharing?
You did, yes.
Okay, great, sorry.
Thank you so much, Lucia, for sharing the project. I was really excited about this recursive human in the loop aspect of your project, this kind of secondary, tertiary, kind of these third order, like being enclosed in the machine in some way, and yet like still being the puppeteer of the pointing it into different directions. I loved that recursiveness around it. I also thought aesthetically, some of the handmade it almost seemed like the materiality. This could have happened not on a screen, that it could have been in of felt or wool or paint. You know, like there could have been so many different materials to some of the images that you presented, and I was curious how that manifested maybe in your prompting or with your paintings, and how the materiality of a pixel just varies in texture. And then the last one, when you described a way of moving through shapes and kind of coming into 3 dimensions, I'm curious how people will encounter this work, whether it will be in a kind of 2-dimensional gallery format or wearing this as a game or in a headset. And so I'm so curious to know how the experience will unfold for the new audience member. But yes, I thought the materiality, I was very interested in that.
Thank you, Katie. Lindsay, would you like to respond?
Sure. Thank you, Lucia. What a gorgeous project. The visuals and the aesthetics really pop. And as Katie said, you can really feel in some ways through the screen the texture of these paintings, which was really incredible. I was really struck by the processual aspect and the iterative aspect that you were talking about. I think that was like really apparent in the examples that you talked about. And that made me kind of think about time too. This is something that's come up a little bit, how that could be kind of even more potentially central to you, like how you're experiencing yourself in time, how um, the sort of dialogue that you're having with this AI is taking you both out of time and creating new timelines. And then the the squares as a kind of continuous shape was really interesting for me, and it made me think about how the pixelation of screens kind of met this other sort of cultural connotation of squares that was really meaningful to you. So it almost became a kind of quilting together. So I just am super eager to hear more about, again, as Katie said, the sort of how you're going to present this, and how you might even build on the sort of longer temporal structures of this process.
Thank you, Lindsay. Lauren?
Thank you so much. I was really, I appreciated you reading out some of the prompts you were using, and I was thinking about the relationship between prompting and image description or visual description. I think there's something really interesting to explore there. I was also curious about, I think early on in your presentation, you said working with the AI tools actually inspired you to create new paintings. And I thought that feedback loop was really exciting and seemed like something to explore and something I'd be curious to hear more about. Like, what was it about seeing these systems what new ideas did it trigger that you didn't have before? So, thinking about AI is not just something that can kind of generate something based on a training set, but something that could actually be generative in terms of your thought and creativity. And then lastly, I was just, I'm not sure if there's other kind of AI or generative artists that you resonate with or place like to think of your work in dialogue with. But for me, Helena Sarin came to mind and Jean Kogan. So might be interesting to check them out if you're not already familiar. But nice work.
Thank you, Lauren. Wonderful. Well, let's move on to our next artist. Abram Stern, MFA, PhD, is an artist and scholar whose work builds upon collections of government-produced media and metadata. They interrogate the material produced by public bureaucracies and the infrastructures that mediate our experiences of them. They hold a bachelor's degree in digital media from the San Francisco Art Institute, a master's in fine art, digital art and new media, and a PhD in film and digital media from the University of California, Santa Cruz.
Hi, everybody. I have pale skin, short graying hair, dark blue shirt on a blurry background. We have changed the sharing interface. Just a moment. I want the sound. Yes. Here's my window. So I'm just gonna set things up with a little bit of a pre-ramble, a couple images that kind of bring us into the current work by way of a gradient. This is an image that was shot by a Reaper drone flown by Customs and Border Patrol in 2020. This was during the uprising in response to the death of George Floyd. And it was a very cloudy day. And so the digital image produced by the sensor on this drone was kind of glitching out, and it couldn't actually surveil functionally. And so I think we tend to think of surveillance as like this perfectly abled eye in the sky, but I don't know, drones have bad days too. And so this, I don't know, like I'm interested in failure, but not like glitch for glitch's sake. I feel like this is failure we can root for towards abolition. So 3 days in May are kind of doing this. 5 years earlier, over the Baltimore uprising, as a result of the death of Freddie Gray, the FBI flew a number of manned airplanes, and this is a forward-looking infrared sensor, also having a bad day. But you know, in addition to that, there's this burned-in metadata showing the date and time. I'm interested in how surveillance is mediated and how institutions and technologies tell on themselves in these moments, which takes me to May 30th, 2023, a CT scan that led to my diagnosis of stage 3 colorectal cancer. And it's hard for me not to think about these images together as technical images that require really specialized knowledge to decode, that as lay people, even as subjects of these technologies, they can be really confusing and difficult to look at. And so this is the material that I'm working with in the project I'm sharing today. And so my project takes up these medical images and puts them through a process in which they're converted into sound and transmitted. So it's a transmission-based project that's interested in kind of the temporality of diagnosis, treatment, and surveillance. I have 5 years of surveillance to go after some pretty intense treatment. And I'm now in remission, but even good scans have language like stable low attenuation lesions, too small to characterize. And so in both kinds of surveillance, there's like these really heavy stakes of what it means to be smaller than a pixel, of what it means to be undetectable. And for me, this arises, I'm about a week and a half away from, like every 6 months, I get CT and MRI scans of, you know, what we refer to as scanxiety. And it's not just what can be found, but also, oh, like what's too small to characterize. And so this is a CT image that has been turned into sound and transmitted and then received and decoded, and it sounds like this. That goes on for about 4 minutes per image. It's slow scan television was developed to like move images from space to the Earth. And the sort of white noise in the background becomes these kind of rainbow RGB pixels over the image. And so I'm in the workflow that I've developed. After the image has been reduced to produce the slow scan television, I'm using AI upscaling to like sort of restore the resolution. And this is not, this doesn't repair an image. This doesn't open up what's smaller than a pixel. This is actually more like the clouds over Minneapolis. And I actually see this as a kind of redaction and abstraction where this AI upscaler has like a general training set that's based on all images. Maybe some of them are CT, but most of them aren't. I know a lot of them are trained on anime films because one of the major use cases for these tools is to make like earlier low-res anime like look good on a large TV. So the way that these models get trained actually really inform what we get. And so to me, this is like a kind of induced apophenia. And then from this stage, I'm running vision models on, like I see this as a process of kind of opening up the cracks of these spaces that are smaller than a pixel for misrecognition, confusion. And what that produces is, like my menu is covering this up. What the vision model sees in these images of the body. And so face, beetle, wire machine, and I'm almost done. But that sounds like radio teletype. The general workflow for this is like the CT image comes in, it gets converted, it goes through this loop of reduction, transmission, reception, enhancement, and then loops. And so it's becoming more and more noisy and abstract over time. And then I'll be ringing a bell as it sort of falls into full misrecognition at the end of the process. And it's a durational transmission that will take several days to move through a single set of images. Skip through these and just, this was an image that I can't reproduce that came out of the process. Thank you.
Thank you, Abram. All right. If you would stop your screen share, then we'll go and move to. Thank you. All right, Lauren, would you like to start us off?
Sure. Fascinating project. Thank you. There were so many moments in your presentation that were just like poetry or so provocative, from the images you opened with to some of these phrases you threw in there, like drones can have bad days too, failure we can root for. I really appreciate that you're connecting these systems that are both that range from like global or environmental or political to something personal to something medical, and all those have kind of different node points. So it's a really interesting complication of all that. I thought the phrase of not just what can be found, but what's too small to characterize really stuck with me. I was wondering, in the presentation of the, like in the final presentation of the work, or the public presentation, like how much context is necessary? I think some of the images and sounds are so striking that I wonder, how you position that with the context around it, which is also very interesting, and whether one comes before the other, or you're discovering both at the same time, or whether maybe some of it is not even necessary at points because it just stands on its own. I also appreciated the just the way this project is talking about kind of the space between interpretation and reality, acknowledging that both of those things are kind of fuzzy and open to interpretation. And then lastly, I was thinking about how sound affects the body, and the kind of like added loop of what will listening to this transmission do. How does that further kind of open up glitches in ourselves?
Thanks, Lauren. Katie?
Thank you so much for sharing this project, and also very glad to know that you're in remission, and wishing you the best for the anxiety that's coming up, which you shared with us. Similar to Lauren, I wrote down a couple phrases of things that you said because I thought they were so beautiful. And I'm like, how can this experience of hearing you poet this work can also be a part of the work? You said technical images where you need a specialized knowledge to decode them. This notion of images that are not legible to all, and yet they are an image, like this idea of a technology that is impartial, but it's not. I thought was beautiful, and also made me question how much specialized knowledge you want to impart onto others, or that they may already have that they're not aware of. I think when you said something that's too small to characterize or smaller than a pixel, begged questions for me. What would we rather not see? What should we ignore or not? And what would you rather hear versus see? I think as soon as you started to play the sound, it like added a completely different experience of this. I had an immediate visceral feeling, and I was like, of course, this needs to be paired with this image. And I actually thought those combinatorics of the sound with the image is also a place where you could pair different things and maybe see the change in affect. And finally, when again to this point about scale, it made me think of kind of the scale of human experience versus one of computer experience or camera experience, and where those things are situated and how scale can be both implicit or explicit. And maybe that can affect the scale of the actual literal image that you present, sort of like a hyperbolically large thing that is demonstrating a very small entity. Yeah, thanks for sharing.
Thank you, Katie. Lindsay?
Thank you so much, Abram. What a really fascinating and moving book. So let's see, I was really struck by how you explore the different lenses of surveillance, from kind of cultural surveillance to the, taking it all the way to the level of like personal bodily surveillance, and how there's actually a lot of connection across that span. And I wrote down the concept, or the note that you shared, how drones and machine surveillance can be kind of like a flawed eye in the sky, and in the same way that can also apply to like X-ray vision, machine vision, right? And I just think that what your project really brings to it is this notion of like questioning and critiquing what is vision, what is the sort of distinction between what's visible and what's invisible. And I thought the creative way that you play with that were really fascinating, and make me think of like different aesthetic points of access too, right? I think my question was, I was curious to hear, even though you gave us that really interesting graph about how you generated the sound and the sort of temporal sequence, I was curious what the sort of aesthetic motivations were for how you came to that sound, or how you curated that sound. I may have missed that, but that might be something that could be, I would just be eager to hear a little bit more about how you see the sound working with the images in a bit more detail. But thank you for your really fascinating work.
Thank you, Lindsay. And thank you, Abram. All right, moving on to our next presenter. I'm excited to introduce Jofi Bali Nagy, who's a historian and practitioner of new media art based in Los Angeles. She is a visiting assistant professor of art history at Scripps College, where she teaches modern and contemporary art, media archaeology, and crypt aesthetics. She earned a BA in visual arts and a PhD in art history from the University of Chicago, and her research has been supported by the Getty Research Institute, the National Gallery of Art, the Fulbright and Daedalus Foundations, and the DAAD. Jofi?
Hi, everyone. So I'm a light-skinned woman with blonde hair tinted pink, and I'm wearing this fun cloud print shirt that I'm pretty sure is a pajama shirt that I also owned as a child. It's from Limited Too. So I'm going to share my screen with sound. Let's see. Is that visible to everyone? Okay, great. So my project and a lot of my work is a critique of the medical industrial complex that comes out of my own experience spending years chasing or crawling after a diagnosis, which is a quite common shared experience for people who have turn out to have Ehlers-Danlos syndrome and its comorbidities. The average time to diagnosis is 10 to 12 years. And at the root of the project is these questions about truth value in medical imaging, truth value in AI-driven diagnostic tools, and just AI-generated content in general. I was thinking a lot about how people have been turning to AI to find answers, to self-diagnose, especially when they don't have access to healthcare, their doctors don't have time to listen to them. So I'm going to share some clips from this video I'm making for the exhibition. The working title is Feeling is Believing, and it's a kind of infomercial for a fantasy medical imaging device that reads energy. So I'm interested in this like very West Coast intersection of new age aesthetics and high tech kind of discourse. And I play this character who was influenced by the inventor of the Aura camera, wearing lab coats, but with kind of questionable credentials. And creating this sort of time warp where toll-free numbers and agentic AI coexist. So I'm going to go ahead and play it. And just as a access note, the first half has captions already that I put on, but the second half doesn't. So there might be some interesting redundance happening on Maya's screen.
Are you experiencing pain that just won't go away? Joint pain, inflamed muscles, unexplained bruising. Maybe your digestive system is so out of sorts that you find yourself avoiding activities you love in order to stay close to the comfort of your own powder room. You've been to the doctor. You've had tests done. Files and files of blood work that drained your energy like a vampire. And time after time, you've been told that your vitals are normal. The results show nothing. So there's probably nothing wrong with you. Maybe your doctor referred you to a psychiatrist for suspected hypochondria, hysteria, or psychosomatic symptoms related to your generalized anxiety disorder. There's a name for this. It's called medical gaslighting. The more you encounter it, the more it negatively impacts your mental health. You might experience fatigue from going doctor to doctor, searching for answers to no avail, to the point of burnout, hopelessness, isolation. You may be stuck in bed, not only because of your physical ailments, but also because you have lost hope in the medical system.
Hi there. My name is Dr. Fifi Robinson. Let me introduce you to my own groundbreaking invention. It's called the Intuitive Imaging Instrument, the Triple Eye. And like the third eye in Eastern spiritual practices, the triple eye can see things that you and I cannot. Now here at Intuitive Imaging Industries, we've developed our own proprietary color algorithm that you won't find anywhere else. And unlike your average radiology lab, which may take days or weeks to provide you with a CD-ROM of images you may never look at, we provide instantaneous, tangible output. You will leave our office with results you can hold in your hands. These beautiful transparencies. Unlike ordinary X-rays, use a full color spectrum and capture not just physical discrepancies from the norm, but also imbalances in your energy, anything that is feeling a little off in your body. If you're interested in scheduling a free consultation, pick up your phone and dial our toll-free number now, 1-800-III-HEAL. That's 1-800-444-4325. Please note that at this time we are not accepting any forms of insurance. However, we are more than delighted to provide a super bill, which you are welcome to submit to your...
Are you
All right.
Are you
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Jofi. Right, I'm gonna pass that on to Katie to offer some initial feedback.
Toby, thank you so much for sharing this project. And love the, I think this like mashup of anachronistic forms of media, both like the kind of TV infomercial as this canonical way of like first being able to buy something that was advertised to you, and how that's then translated into internet forms and mobile applications, and kind of like this mashup between like older forms of media and commerce and health. And I was asking questions of like, what is for sale? What can't we buy? What can't humans buy that pertain to our health? And like just this ooey gooey mashup of kind of commerce, insurance, lifespan, money span. Like there's just so much rich material there. And I think approaching it with a sense of humor, like gave me an entry point, as opposed to something that was proselytizing or lectury, which I really loved. So I got really excited about that. I also thought to this point around self-diagnosis, question of the veneer of like kind of also what comes up around kind of anti-vaxxing or people kind of being more informed than traditional forms of education or media. I was sort of made me question like, what can or can't you learn through institutional mechanisms, and what kind of perceived power or real power does that give you, whether you're making autonomous choices around about your own body or for collectives and cohorts of people. And just one point on aesthetics, I really loved the quality of the video, the sort of blurriness. It like harkened back to a different, like me sitting in the 90s in my parents' living room. And I love that relationship to something that's then AI generated. Thank you.
Lauren, would you like to keep that up?
Yeah, I really appreciated the humor as we've been talking about, but also kind of the world building, the way that everything tied together in this piece, and the space that it gave me as the viewer to really just kind of fall into that. Thought the piece raised some really interesting questions about trust, in the way that it's sort of asking us or provoking us and whether or not we want to trust the narrator in this video. And then my answer is whether I trust or not kind of takes me back to like, well, we're expected to place trust in these medical apparatuses and in this system, and how is the language or the messaging different? What are the expectations in each of these kind of realms that you're working with? I also just appreciated how kind of aesthetic and visual and visceral the piece was, which I think was a really nice tie-in when you think about some of the medical systems you encounter and how they're in theory designed around your health or your well-being, but they often feel so cold or sterile or kind of devoid from anything that really connects with how you're experiencing your body at that moment. And so I thought that drew another nice contrast.
Lauren, Lindsay?
Thank you so much, Sophie. I just wanted to highlight that, after your presentation concluded, everybody was laughing. There was like a real prominent like sensory response to your piece. And I think that's sort of a testament to the desire for like that very cheeky humor, which I don't think we see enough of in disability aesthetics. And I just wanted to compliment you on that because I think that brings such a necessary sort of intervention to what can often feel like the very serious sort of processes that we go through when we're seeking a diagnosis, for example. Just to kind of build off of what Lauren and Katie said, the sort of aesthetics of this made me think of the sort of storytelling that you staged here reminded me a little bit of like Black Mirror, in that sense, where you were sort of like forecasting to the future, even though you had these sort of older media images. And I thought the storytelling was really compelling. I think that was like a major strength of this piece here that just like really distills some of these themes about medical trust, about the sort of lack of transparency around medical diagnosis, and you were playing with that in a very visceral way with those sort of colorful X-ray films. It also reminded me of sort of like quack medicine and how that's and like big pharma advertisements and how that's kind of gotten conflated with like new age social media TikTok influencers. And I was almost wondering if like there's an opportunity to take that like even further. Where is this like a live streaming sort of situation where you like pull in the audience even more and people like have the opportunity to kind of call in or comment on this to just to kind of elevate that even further. So that just seemed like one creative opportunity to explore further, perhaps. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Lindsay. Thank you, Jofi. All right, well, that brings us to our final artist for today, Tanya. So Tanya Vlach is a disabled neurodivergent multimedia artist, writer, and recovery-centered facilitator based in San Francisco. Through Colibrita, their creative studio and workshop platform, they explore disability studies, generative AI, and participatory storytelling to transform shame into shared wonder. A survivor and granddaughter of a Guatemalan immigrant, Tanya brings a Latinx sensibility to their work, weaving cultural memory, personal mythology, and ritual into inclusive, multisensory experiences that center collective care, creative autonomy, and radical imagination. Tanya?
Okay, hello everybody. I am a white-ish woman with a big ol' ponytail, wearing glasses. Behind me is, I mean, I don't want to say dystopian, but it's a darkly lit archive. My access needs are be patient and forgiving. And I think we can all take a deep breath. That's what I need to do. Ready? All right. I am really grateful to be here. This has been kind of a dream come true for me. It's something I've been working on, working to get towards for quite some time, and still pinching myself. All right, so let me go ahead and share. Oh wait, first, let me stop and make sure. Access, what is it called? Access. Share sound. Okay. This is when everybody can breathe and meditate.
What can I do you for on this fine day?
Hi, sir. You're Mr. Rancher guy who I never consciously met.
Whoa. Well, now, ain't that something?
I'm Tanya. I'm not sure if you remember me, but 20 years ago today, you pulled me out of a Jeep that rolled 5 times.
Well, I'll be darned.
and I was hoping to talk to you and thank you for saving my life.
Listen, little lady, it was my God-gifted pleasure. You have a wonderful day, you hear. You take care now. See you later. Hasta la vista.
Okay, so now I want to go quickly into apologies here. Let's see. Of course, I have lost everything. There we go. This is part of my challenges, is freezing under pressure. So bear with me. I don't know why it doesn't show up, but hold on. It was working just fine. This is just a demonstration of what it's like to be me, is all of a sudden you're lost. Okay, great. We found me and we found you, the Uncovery Land. An auto-speculative cartography of becoming and unbecoming. So I actually have this text up here so I won't lose myself, won't lose where I'm at. This is in the high desert near Alturas. This started in the high desert near Alturas, where I lost control of a car and a version of myself. The Uncovery Land is where memory, disability, and technology learn to speak to each other. Coming out of my car accident, I had a brain injury, and I've come to realize I had something like narrative dysphoria, narrative diffraction. My archive, and I archive a lot right now, my archive is fragmented, part medical forms, part myth. I use AI not to fix, but to refract it so new alignments can emerge. I believe the semicolon is a way to discover what's coming next for me. Our scars are psychogeographic detours. Speculative witching, a practice, not a genre. I scan, I restory, reframe, and I co-create. I scan, collect, restory through collage and co-create with AI as witness and mirror. It's a reclaiming ritual, access as tempo, pacing as design. I love collaging. From fragments to field, I'm translating nonlinear notes and scans into spatial forms, constellations you could walk through. So I'm using Obsidian to try to piece together my fragmented thoughts in my archives, and have discovered that there are connections, and I don't feel so lost. I do believe tentacular thinking has helped orient me, and going slow provides the time that I can make the connections. The Uncovery Land, this is a very bad rendition that ChatGPT did. So anyway, I just wanted to just do a disclaimer on that. Each terrain is a portal. These nodes are prosthetic landscapes where care and tech intersect. the map changes as the story does. So I like the idea of a narrative being a shapeshifter. So my outputs are now living on Vimeo. Community-based, access-forward, AI as relational practice, not spectacle, iterative, co-created storytelling environments. I'm designing for CripTime and co-making templates others can reuse to reauthor their stories. And this is dedicated to Wilbur, who teaches me every day the value of interspecies communication. So I'm looking for collaborators and people to co-create with. You can go to this website and sign up or talk to me. And I'm hoping that we can create a map together. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Tanya. All right. Lauren, would you start us off, please?
Sure, thank you for sharing this project. I loved the intro and the way that it kind of instantly just took me into this world, and I had so many questions. And then the way that you're working with these kind of fragments or these different pieces that come together is super intriguing, and I think also is something that a lot of people could connect to in terms of their experience of the world or of disability or of relating to others or storytelling. So I think there's something really resonant in that kind of structure and concept in the way you're weaving things together. I was also thinking about yeah, I'm really curious to see where it goes and how I think you described it as like a kind of community platform or community storytelling, what the possibilities are for that as you follow through in these strands. I think that could go in a lot of different directions, and I think there's some really nice references out there of different ways to engage people. One that came to mind, you may already be familiar with her work, but I was thinking about Petra Kuppers. It's been doing some nice kind of VR meetups, and I think that idea that you're also talking about of kind of like exploration and play and storytelling as a way to develop something is just a really rich idea and a great seed to build on. So thank you.
Lindsay, would you like to respond?
Thank you so much, Tanya. What an evocative project. Yeah, I love that you immersed us right from the get-go in this world, and I was just so intrigued. And I love how there was actually some intentional glitching in there, which kind of interrupted the sheen or veneer of this sort of AI-generated image. So there was there was like an itch that I wanted to scratch to get further into that. So I wrote down like a couple of keywords that like really resonated with me that came out through your presentation. This notion of kind of collage, you said, which was really important to you, and that is kind of a tactic or a mechanism that we see AI doing, but it's also a really innately human creative activity, and how you're looking to kind of play with this idea of collage, gathering these fragments and making new meanings or stories out of that. So I thought that was really neat. Um, and I think the biggest question that I had, I was really intrigued when you invited collaborators at the end of the presentation. And I would be eager to hear a little bit more about like, do you have a planned structure for that collaboration? What kinds of collaboration are you hoping for? Are you inviting other people to introduce their own fragmented stories to make a bigger collage? So maybe setting a little bit of parameters, or not even parameters, just like some expectations around what that collaboration would look like might actually help people enter that space even more productively. But thank you for this fascinating project.
Thank you, Lindsay. Katie?
Thank you so much, Tanya, for sharing. You had a phrase at the beginning, which was, I use AI not to fix, but to refract. And so new alignments can emerge, which I found like as a brain tickler again, a really beautiful phrase. And also I think made me want to hear more from you about how you think that AI currently does fix, and how you can use AI to refract in ways with other mediums that you can't, which I think was revealed a little more over the course of your presentation. I loved that you had animals in this, both because they have a lot of spiritual function and also because I think so much about your presentation had to do with relationship, kind of self to self, self other, self animals, self universe, self tools. And I was thinking, just to your point about constellations, if there was a way to map or demonstrate those relationships. I mean, since you described that. I also thought another big theme I heard in your project was around time and kind of your sense of time or past history, what's upcoming, what's present. And I could feel some of that collapsing, especially when you talked about memory. And so my invitation is maybe to think about some of those relational things that also have to do over time and time horizons. And then when you described Vimeo in your presentation, I would be curious to know if that was an ideal platform for you, or kind of maybe because Vimeo is known for storytelling or it's community connected. Just letting us know more about that. As is it a placeholder or is it kind of the end game? And where else you would want to see this live on the internet or in other spaces.
All right, thank you, Katie, and thank you, Tanya. That brings us to the end of everybody's presentations. We wanted to leave some time for Q&A, but I think that given the time we have left, it's perhaps we don't have that time. But we'll leave the chat open a little bit if people want to do a little back and forth while we wrap things up. In the meantime, I'd just like to thank everybody so much. Thank you to our lead artist, Ilo, for stewarding these amazing projects. Thank you to the participating artists who've been working so hard and really showing up to do this work. Thank you to our panelists for participating so wholeheartedly today. I think I found this dialogue and this forum really meaningful and really generative, and it really wouldn't be possible without all of you here. So as you know, these are works in progress. So at the beginning of December, we'll launch a virtual exhibition website where you'll be able to see all of these works in their perhaps not final iterations, but in the versions that they'll have been kind of cultivated for after this dialogue. So stay tuned for that. We'll be sure to share that information when it comes out. And thank you to our supporters, Ability Central and Ford Foundation, who make this work possible. Wouldn't be able to do it and to build this community without you. Yeah, so we'll keep things open a few more minutes if you'd like to just be in the chat, but I think we'll, if you'd like to wrap up, thank you everybody for being here.